You're listening to Yo Quiero Dinero, a personal finance podcast for the modern Latina. I'm your host, Janice Torres Rodriguez, and I'm here to help you be poderosa with your dinero. I'm an engineer, a blogger, and an entrepreneur that built a $50,000 side hustle, and I'm obsessed with all things personal finance. On this show, we're going to talk about how to make dinero, how to keep your dinero, and how to make it grow. Are you ready? Vámonos. Hola, mi gente. Welcome back to another episode of Yo Quiero Dinero, the podcast. This is your host, Janice, and I am so excited today. We are going to be talking to a Latina who is also a certified financial planner, and we're going to be talking about how you can stop letting money create stress in your life, because money can be super friggin' stressful. We all know that, but there are key steps that you can take to feel more in control of your money. And so I can't wait to talk to Ana Njai Conte, certified financial planner and host of First-Gen Realness podcast. Ana is a passionate believer in the empowerment of women and minorities in America. She's a certified financial planner and the founder of Dare to Dream Financial Planning, a fee-only virtual financial planning firm that serves the needs of 30 and 40-something-year-old women of color who want to live boldly and make a lasting impact on their family tree. She's also the host of the First-Gen Realness podcast. There, she engages in conversations with her fellow first-generation Americans in order to reinforce their value and immense contributions to the fabric of America. By fostering a sense of community, she hopes to remind her peers that they matter, their stories are important, and that they are not alone in attempting to navigate multiple cultures with grace. Ana is a native New Yorker, a lover of all things related to food, Gambia, Latino history, West African culture, and literature. When she doesn't have her head buried in a spreadsheet, you can find her working out, rereading literary classics, hanging out with her husband and 3 daughters, or dreaming about her next adventure. You take care of your body by exercising, eating right, and getting enough sleep. But are you doing the same for your mind? On this podcast, we're always talking about mindset and mental health as the foundation for financial wellness. So we're super proud to partner with BetterHelp to get you access to professional, affordable therapy right at your fingertips. Even with health insurance coverage, traditional therapy costs over $100 per session, and that's if you can even get an appointment. Online counseling is an effective, convenient, and affordable way to get help with many issues. You can chat with your therapist at your convenience in whatever mode you're most comfortable with. Just take a short quiz and get personally matched with one of BetterHelp's professional, licensed, and experienced counselors and get the support and guidance you need to start making a change. As a reminder, online therapy is not suitable for someone who's suffering from a severe mental health condition that makes them a danger to themselves or others. Download the BetterHelp app today and get started with 10% off exclusively for Yo Quiero Dinero podcast listeners. Just use the discount code DINERO, that's DINERO, and you can get 10% off your first month. You can also go to betterhelp.com/dinero for the same offer. BetterHelp, affordable, private, online counseling, anytime, anywhere. All right, Ana, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to talk to you.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. One of the big reasons why I wanted to talk to you is because you are pretty much a unicorn in the sense that you are a certified financial planner who is Afro Latina, which
Mm-hmm.
does not exist essentially.
Yeah.
According to a recent Forbes article that I read, like less than 4% of over 80,000 CFPs that we have in this country are Black and
Mhm.
Latino. So I can only
Yeah.
imagine like a Black Latina, it just doesn't exist, and I'm sure
No.
you could talk all about that. But before we get into that, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, thank you so much. It is true. I am a bit of a unicorn, but I don't like it that way. I'll take it.
Yeah.
But so my name is Ananjai Conte. I am originally from New York City. My mom is Puerto Rican, and my dad is an immigrant from the Gambia, which is a very small country in West Africa. And I am a certified financial planner that runs her own firm called Dare to Dream Financial Planning.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. Shout out to Boricuas. And I
Boricua's in the
feel like,
house.
yes, the fact that you are half Puerto Rican is even more amazing because I don't know anybody Puerto Rican that's in the financial industry. It's wild.
I don't think I can think of any. I don't think I've even come across any now that you mentioned that.
Yeah. I mean, we got to change that. And I'm so glad that you're being a part of that wave of women of color that we need in this industry. Because whether or not you want to acknowledge it, like money affects everybody and we should all know how to use
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like you're preaching to the choir, girl. That is I'm going to
it.
beat that drum until I die.
Yes, it's so important. So I
Yeah.
love what you're doing. And I want to know kind of how you got into this space. But before we get into that, I want to know like what your relationship was like with money growing up because we all have a money
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
So can you talk us through that?
Yeah, sure. So, my family's pretty interesting. So, obviously, coming from a mixed background, I'd say they have two different relationships with money, and that kind of led me to be where I am. But I would say that I think my money beliefs are mostly shaped by my mom's side.
Mm-hmm.
So, my mom is Puerto Rican and like from very humble beginnings. Like
Yeah.
my family, like they're jibaros from like Puerto Rico. They grew up on farms, like very humble beginnings. And my grandmother was one of 18 children.
Oh
My
my gosh.
I know, yes. It's kind of insane. Anytime I say that, people are like, "You're just lying," but I swear. Um, and my mom, so she left Puerto Rico as a child and just sorry, as a young woman, and when my mom was a child, to come to the States to try to like just create a better life, right? And
Yeah.
because my family had such humble beginnings, and my mom's dad died literally the day she was born. So my mom was raised by a single mom.
Mm,
And because they just had nothing. I really learned that like money wasn't for me, if that makes sense.
mm-hmm.
And even though my mom and my titi Maria, who's my mom's older sister, they grew up to do pretty well for themselves. Like they both had professional jobs, and my mom was the first in her family to go to college, which is amazing. But you know they just did not have a good relationship with money. I think it kind of manifested in two ways. And those two things also kind of influenced me. My mom was like, whatever, money's not for me, so I'm just going to spend it. And like,
Mm,
whatever, like, I'm not going to try and hold on to it because it's not for me anyway. And then my titi took the opposite tack and was like, I literally, like, she died a few years ago. And when we were going through her belongings, we found like a notebook that she literally was like, I spent $1.50 at Pathmark, and I
wow.
spent like $6 over here and $150 there. And she had these books for like compositional books for like 10 years in her room.
Mm, mm-hmm.
And so I feel like I grew up thinking that like I would never be rich. I just wanted to be comfortable. And then I kind of varied in between like being super stingy with myself and like trying to save every penny to like, you know what, like YOLO, like I'm just gonna spend it. And that kind of like whenever I would get tired of like counting every dollar, I would just kind of go nuts. And that was my relationship with it too, because it was very dysfunctional.
Yeah, yeah. I think I resonated so much with that story because I think I was doing the same thing as I kind of came into my own as an adolescent. Like,
Hmm.
growing up in a household where you don't get what you want because like your parents just can't afford it.
Yeah.
And then I'm like the first to graduate from college in my family. I'm like
Hmm.
working in tech and
Hmm.
science, so I'm getting paid well for like a 22-year-old. And
Hmm.
I'm just like wilding out
Yeah.
because for the first time I could actually like afford all these things that I couldn't afford when, that we couldn't afford as a
Mhm.
family. And then it
Mhm.
would create this cycle of like getting into massive amounts of debt, then
Mhm.
realizing, okay, I need to get my shit together. So let me
Mhm.
not do this for a while, pay off the debt,
Mhm.
say I'm never going to do it again. And 6 months later, I'm like $10,000 in credit card debt all over again.
Yes.
It's so
Um,
dysfunctional.
it really is, and that's exactly how I would be. It would be like I would vary between like I got, $3,000 in my savings account. Like I'm good. I'm talking
Yeah.
about like when I first graduated. And then, a year down the road, I look at my credit card, I'm like, whoa, that says $7,000. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And now my savings account balance is down to like $900. And
Mhm.
that was really a challenge for me. And it wasn't until I started to do a lot of work around my money mindset and my relationship with money that I realized like what was driving my behaviors and why it just wasn't going to work.
Yeah, that is so important. I don't think people realize like the power that your mind has around the decisions that you make with your money. And I mean, it
Mhm.
makes so much sense. Like people talk about mindset when it comes to like your physical fitness, maybe even like your
Mhm.
relationships with people,
Mhm.
but the way that you value money has a lot to do with how you value yourself.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's
Yes,
just
and if you don't
food
feel
for
like you're
thought.
worth it, absolutely. And
Mm,
that's the thing. It's like I didn't think, and this touches all kinds of things, but if you don't think you're worth it, quote unquote worth it, then you're not going to ask for more money when you get a new job. You're not
mhm.
going to even bother, setting up the retirement account or creating an emergency fund or putting something away for your future. You're just not going to bother with it because it's like you just are like I don't deserve this, or my family, there's a whole lot of, I'm sure you experience this too, like there's a whole lot of guilt about,
Oh my God.
like,
Don't even get me started.
I'm sitting with $5,000 in my bank account, but my primo over here is like struggling, and I shouldn't, like, what kind of person am I that I'm like
Mhm.
hoarding onto this money when I have family that like could use the help and like I would see real tangible benefits from having it.
Yeah, yeah, I totally experienced that. And funny enough, a lot of it comes from my immediate family, which I
Hmm.
find very ironic because we're given this message that we need to go to school, get a good
Hmm.
education so we can get
Hmm.
good jobs and get
Hmm.
paid a lot of money. But then when we
Hmm.
start making that money and we start kind of ascending to this level of wealth that other people in our family have not, they
Hmm.
kind of look at you like, oh well, you don't understand the struggle anymore, so don't give
Yeah.
me advice because you are not in this place anymore. And it's just like, yo, but
Hmm.
wasn't that the point? Like, why are we
Yes.
shaming this?
Exactly. And like, why are, like, this is not the struggle Olympics. It is not a competition about who's struggling more. Like, that does not get anybody ahead on any way, shape, or form. It just keeps us like mired in this nonsense. And
Yes.
then so, like, from my perspective, like, you want your daughter or your niece or whoever it is to be doing well with money, because that means, like, one, she's not going to be coming to you for things because she's
Mhm.
set and she's secure, but then also, like, just on a human level, like, I'm good for you, like, I'm so
Yeah.
happy for you,
Yeah.
you're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot. We carry many
Mhm.
burdens. So,
I
and
know.
I think it's a unique to the first gen people of color, like immigrant background and
Mhm.
family. Like we just got all types of burdens that
I
other people don't
swear.
understand.
No. And that was why, when I started my firm, I wanted to specifically work with women of color, because I said, listen, like, my background in the wealth management and investment management fields, I saw was frankly a bunch of old white people.
Mhm.
And even if there were younger advisors of color, that's who they were trying to work with, because they tend to have bigger portfolios and so you get paid more and blah blah blah. But um, I wanted to be of service to that community and give them the tools that they needed from somebody that's going to understand them well and not judge them for, sending money to their cousin, or, having an iffy relationship with money and try to coach them through that. Like, I wanted to serve as a resource that way, because it is a really unique experience. And I think it's the kind of thing that, unless you've experienced it, it's really hard to understand just how it plays into everything, you know?
Yes. Such a good point. All right. So speaking of financial planning and your career, let's talk about that. How did you
Hmm.
actually get in this space and where you
Yeah.
are today?
So it was really accidental. I mean, like, we talked about my background a bit, but like, I didn't even know this was a profession. And maybe
Mhm.
if I had an idea, I just thought like, oh, esas son cosas de rico, like that. That's like they might have some old white dude that they take to the country club and he'll manage their money, and like, okay, but that was not something that I even thought. So, I graduated college in 2009, which was a rough time to
Mm-hmm.
be coming of age and trying to find your first job. And so I fell into a job at planning events for people that wanted to invest in Latin America. Because I'm Latina, because I speak Spanish, they hired me for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up working on an event that was focused on the wealth management industry in Latin America.
Mm-hmm.
So, in planning that event and talking to people about the business, I just thought, you know what, like this is something that I would love. Like, I like talking to people, I like helping, I like problem solving, like all, and I'm good at numbers, all of those things kind of fit together. And so, I was there for about a year, and then I jumped right into the industry at a large asset management firm called Alliance Bernstein in New York as an assistant, and I just worked my way up from there, moving to a few different firms over the years.
Awesome. So, what does it actually take to become a financial planner? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, it's a lot of work to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So, there are experience requirements. I think you have to work in the financial services industry for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to take a year's worth of coursework just to cover like all, insurance and investments and risk management and cash flow management, debt, retirement planning, like all of those things, estate planning, trust. You have to do a full year of coursework on that stuff, and then you sit for an exam. And at the end of that, hopefully, you get your CFP marks.
Okay. And you have to maintain like an annual certification, or how does
Yes,
that work?
exactly. So I have continuing education requirements. It's 12 hours a year
Mm-hmm.
of continuing education, and it can be on different topics, estate planning or
Now,
insurance or whatever it
is
is.
that something that your employer like pays for, or is that something you have
Yeah.
to kind of do on your own?
I mean, I think a lot of employers do. I mean, they should
Yeah.
if you're, if it's related. Mine did, luckily. But yeah, I think most of them do. But it does get really pricey. Like the coursework, I think was probably $1,500
Mm-hmm.
when I was doing it. And then the exam cost maybe another $500, and the annual renewal fees are another 300 something. So it can get really pricey. Luckily, when I was at my previous job, they covered all of that stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I could totally see how that would make people who maybe don't necessarily have that type of employer sponsorship like
Mhm.
second guess if they even want to do this. And that's probably one of the reasons why we see such low numbers with Black and Latino CFPs, because
Yeah.
monetary expenses related to all these certifications is something that many of us cannot afford, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, the just like with anything, you can do this job without having the CFP.
Hmm.
So, if you don't have the resources to pay for it and your employer is not willing to pay for it, like I can see a lot of people just foregoing it.
Yeah.
Because, that's $2,000-3,000 right there.
Hmm. So I'm curious because clearly you're in an industry that is super white, super
Mm-hmm.
male, or like Hey
Yeah.
Berna says, hella male, hella pale, right? And
I like that.
and so I'm curious, like, do you have any stories about being a woman of color in the personal finance or in the
Ay,
financial planning
mija.
space? I can only imagine.
Goodness, boy, do I have stories. Um, yeah, so it is definitely like hella male, hella pale, as you said, very like boys club, country club kind of thing. I would say the one that really cemented to me that I needed to get out, in that it was the most clear what was going on. So, at my last job, I was hired to be a junior advisor for like one of the top 10 financial advisors at my firm, and it's a pretty big firm. I think they had like 2,000 advisors, so she was
Hmm.
high up there, and it was a woman too. I was like, I'm gonna learn so much from her. I'm a really driven,
Mm,
ambitious person. I was like, I'm gonna learn, and this is gonna be great, and she's gonna take me under her wing, and she was making boatloads of money, and I was like, I'm gonna make boatloads of money, and this is gonna be amazing. And so we were on a team of, there were 5 of us that worked to support her. And so it was me and another guy that were supposed to be like her right and left hand people, right?
mhm,
To do everything and to kind of take a lot of work off of her so that she could go out and run. So I worked for her for, I want to say like 9 months. And about a month before I ended up leaving, there was a me hizo pasar por mucha poca vergüenza, como se dice,
Oh
So
yeah.
there were lots of little things, and I was like, she's just kind of hard to deal with, but like that's just how she is. But about a month before I left that team, my the other guy who was the other junior advisor comes to me and he's like, listen, she wants you to get her tea before every meeting.
Oh
You
hell
and,
no.
and she wouldn't come to me with that because she knows what she was doing, right? She knew what she was
Wow.
doing. She made him go have this ridiculous conversation with me, and I looked at him and I'm like, there are support staff, there's a receptionist here as well. The kitchen is on the way to the conference room from her office. So you want to explain to me why it's my job, like to put me in my place, right? Because at that point, I
Wow.
had been there for a while and I was clamoring to get more responsibilities. Like, I'm proving myself, give me more, give me more, give me more. And that was like a way to like keep me small. And I remember saying to him, I was like, I didn't get an MBA and I don't work like an animal to fetch her tea,
I know that's
like
right.
I don't. And so I was like, okay, this is very clear that I need to get out of here.
Wow. Mm-mm-mm. Girl,
I know.
I can only imagine that's one of many fucking stories because
Yes.
these people out here are wild. Like, I
And this
can't
is a
even.
very liberal, I mean, this was a very liberal person too. Like, she wore her Hillary pin all day long, but she still,
Mm,
and I was, this was at an office in DC, so like relatively liberal area, Um,
yo, that's
and
crazy.
yeah, I wasn't in Arkansas. I mean,
That is insane,
yeah.
especially with the conversations that we're all having about race right now. Like, people don't even
Hmm.
want to acknowledge their races because they think that because they're Democrats, it's like, but that means I love everybody,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't see
Oh
color. Like,
my God.
okay.
Yeah, exactly. She doesn't see color. She doesn't see who you are. And
Mm-hmm.
I hate that phrase because it's just like, no, I actually want you to acknowledge that I'm not the same as you.
Yeah.
So don't.
Yes, absolutely. And like it's not even to like make people feel bad or any kind of way. It's just like I am a different person and I deserve to be acknowledged like that. Just like you would acknowledge I'm a woman
Yes.
versus a man, like that shouldn't be any different.
Yeah. Wow, that's a crazy ass story. Okay, so I can clearly see why you decided, you know what, this corporate America life is not for me. I'm gonna go and create
Mm-hmm.
my own thing. So tell us about that. How did you even go
Yeah.
about that process?
Yeah, it was, I mean, it was a long time coming. Like when I first started the firm, I kind of looked back at my journals and I was like, wow, I've been journaling about this for like 4 years before I actually
Mm,
did it. But the process is a little bit strenuous. So I had to end up leaving my job because you can't, like, it's not the kind of thing where you can have a side hustle and build the business while you're
yeah.
working doing the same thing. So I had to leave, cut ties, and then go about creating the business. So I was registered as a registered independent investment advisor, or RIA.
Hmm.
And that includes more paperwork than you can ever imagine. Um, and about 6 months later, I was ready to go.
Amazing. So what was your goal and what is your goal with your company and what is it called?
Yeah. Yeah, so my company is called Dare to Dream Financial Planning. And my goal, like I said before, is to, I think going back to my background, right? Like because my family came from such humble beginnings, right? They taught me to like go to school, get a job, y ahí te quedas.
Hmm.
Like stay there for 50 years and then you retire and you're done. And like be happy with that,
Yeah.
and so I think that that search for safety and certainty led me to like play really small, right? And I see that
Mm,
a lot in our communities, right? Like we're not necessarily going for the big things because we think that's not for us, like whether that be money or career or whatever it is.
hmm.
I think that that's really pervasive because, I mean, when you're coming from nothing, it's hard to dream about going to some like really big heights, right? And
Yeah.
so I wanted to serve as somebody who can, through running the numbers and doing the planning, help you achieve whatever crazy dream it is that you have, and
Hmm.
like I said, I want to work with women of color, and I do work with women of color that are, on the younger side, 30s and 40s, to help them create that dream life that they only kind of vaguely thought was possible,
Hmm.
and to run the numbers and give them the strategy to get there.
Amazing. Okay, so since you are working with women of color primarily, I
Hmm.
know that you must be, just getting a sense of the unique struggles that we deal with. So,
Hmm.
what are some of the limiting beliefs that your clients deal with, and how do you help them overcome them?
Yeah. Um, I mean, I think the guilt that we talked about before is a big one,
Mm-hmm.
guilt for investing in themselves first before giving to their family.
Yeah.
I think, thinking that money is not for them, or that there's something wrong with money, or that, there's something wrong with having money is a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and
I feel
I
like
think,
some of that comes from religion. Like, I feel like we are
mm,
like
yeah.
kind of programmed to believe that like wealth is or money is the root of all evil because
Mm-hmm.
the Bible is like the greed as like a sin and all this stuff, and it's just
Yeah.
like the messages we get in the media too. It's just like
Mm-hmm.
Wall Street, and they just want to take your money and ruin your life, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like why would I want to get involved in that? So there's so many
Yeah.
things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. And I think, being the one that makes it,
Mm,
is a really big mind trip, I think, for a lot
yeah.
of my clients, right? And so that comes with the guilt of, or the feelings of uncertainty and insecurity and scarcity, and also, you know, n- yeah, just feeling icky about having more than everybody else that's in your family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm curious, like, what your thoughts are on why personal finance literacy should matter to women of color specifically. Like,
Yeah.
why should we care about this?
Well, the thing for me is like money is choices, right? Money gives you
Mm,
choices. And we have so much working against us. As people of color, you have the wage gap, you have just systemic racism, like we're all seeing and talking about these days.
mm-hmm.
And then you also just have your regular interpersonal things. Um you have these family dynamics that might not favor you if you are doing better financially than others. And I think if you are, it just gives you, having money and having the literacy and understanding how to manage your money gives you the ability to make the choices you want to, and not the choices you have to.
Mm,
And I think, being able to say to the bad husband, like, what, I'm getting a divorce and I'm done, and I'm not going to stick around here just because I'm worried about paying for the bills on my own.
yes.
Being able to leave the bad job because you are financially stable enough is important. Being able to move out of your family's house because the environment, family environment is toxic, the dynamics are toxic, and you're just done, and it's better for you to be gone. All of
Mm-hmm.
those things are facilitated with money. And so
That
I
is so
think
true.
the more women are financially empowered, and as women of color, we are like further behind the ball than white women are too. I mean, it's a problem for them too, but it's just more so for us. The more that we're empowered financially, the more we're going to live like beautiful, vibrant, healthy, fabulous lives, And I think
Yeah.
that's what everybody wants, right? Like, doesn't everybody just want to live their dream life? And whatever that may be, it's going to look different for me than it is for you, but like, that's all we want. And money just is a tool to do that.
That is so true. And it makes me think of like financial abuse is something that I've
Hmm.
only recently heard of, right? And I think it once I started really like diving in and learning about it, I realized like, oh my God, this is like one of the reasons why so many of my like relatives stayed in relationships because they were
Hmm.
dependent on money.
Yes.
And as a woman, like that's a big ass deal to be able to just
Mhm.
walk away from a shitty situation because you really are not dependent. Like I don't think
Mhm.
people realize like the level of freedom that you get with just knowing how to manage your money and being able to
Yes.
not have to be dependent on anybody else. Like that is true freedom.
Yes, absolutely. And I've seen that a lot in my family too. Like I can't even tell you. I could be here all day talking about that, but it breaks my heart. And I just, if I get to help one woman not be in that type of position, to feel empowered that whatever she makes, she can figure out a way to make it work and live life on her own terms.
Mhm.
If I can help one woman do that, like I will die happy. That is like that's so big because I saw so much of this nonsense, like you said, like financial abuse and people staying in like physically abusive relationships because they just can't, they're scared.
Yeah.
What is it
Yeah.
going to be like raising two kids on my own? I can't do that. So you're going
Mhm.
to stay with this guy, and it's really heartbreaking to witness. And when you're younger you don't really realize it, but now that I'm older, the more that I see what it is when you are financially empowered and when you can make those choices, I'm like, this is it, this is the key.
Yeah. No, then it makes so much sense. All right. So I'm curious, what does financial self-care mean to you?
I think, pay myself first, making sure
Mm,
that I am doing that. I'm not a fan of like tracking every single penny of what I
me
earn and
either.
spend. I don't think it works. So, I teach clients to set up like a rough, um you pay yourself first, you save first, or you pay off debt, whatever that looks like for you in your particular financial situation, and then you enjoy the rest. And for me, knowing that I have my priorities, like, me and my husband sit down a couple times a year and say, like, what are our priorities? These are our priorities, and then those are the things that we're going to send our money to.
Mhm. Ooh, did I lose you? When I decided I wanted to launch a podcast, I have to admit, I had no idea where I was going to start. That is until I found Anchor. Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. It gives you everything you need all in one place for free, and you can use it right from your phone or computer. They have creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast so it sounds great. And get this, they'll even help you distribute your podcast so it can be heard everywhere like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and more. You can easily make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Isn't that freaking awesome? I mean, what are you waiting for? Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Okay, so I'm curious. What does financial self care mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, financial self-care really just means prioritizing my financial goals first, right? So I teach my
Mm-hmm.
clients to pay yourself first. So I teach a simple um, formula of income minus savings equals expenses, and that's what I follow in my personal life, right? So my husband and I kind of sit down maybe 3 or 4 times a year, and go through our priorities, like our financial priorities, our goals, what we want to achieve. And then we set those up to be taken care of, whether that be debt payoff or savings goals that we have. And we set that up first, and then we kind of spend the rest.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that my priorities are taken care of and that they are prioritized, um
Yes,
really, like, it just frees me up to live without a lot of financial stress that I had lived with in the past when I didn't set things up like that. So
that's
it
so
really,
true.
yeah, it just, I used to do the thing where like every month I would sit down and like, okay, how much am I going to save this month? and it just
Mhm.
doesn't I don't find that it works. And I see that now that we're automating. I literally looked at my Mint. I use Mint to track our finances and all that. And I looked today
Mhm.
and I was like, wow, this is our net worth is a lot higher than I thought it would be. And it's
Mhm.
because I'm just like setting it and forgetting it. And just it's taken care of, so it's not a stressor.
Yes, I am such a firm believer. I feel like I'm anti-budget in the sense that
Mhm.
like this whole thing about giving every single dollar a job and like spending
Mm.
17 hours a day like tracking every penny that I
Yes.
spent. Like I can't do it. It
No.
was I felt like is there something wrong with me because this is just not working for me. And then I began to realize no, it's just like I'm not using a method that works for my personality. So
Mhm.
what ended up working for me is like I have several different accounts.
Mhm.
I put different amounts of money in them. I automate my investing. I automate
Mhm.
my savings because I don't want to think about it. Like I have
Yes.
enough things to do. And as
Absolutely.
long as like I know what I'm trying to accomplish and I'm not like sabotaging that by just spending too much here and there, I mean, it shouldn't be that complicated to have a
No.
budget.
No,
I
it
think that's what
shouldn't.
freaks people out.
It really does. I agree 100% because like, I used to listen to Dave Ramsey, and
Mm,
Dave Ramsey is the guy that he wants you to give every dollar a job.
yeah.
And I used to not understand. I used to spend time like literally inputting my grocery receipts into Excel spreadsheets. And I was like, why am I spinning out of control or like not getting anywhere? And it was because it just wasn't what worked for my personality. And to be honest, I feel like most people are not of the personality that works for them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do the same thing. Like I automate my kids' 529 savings. My husband contributes to his 401k at work automatically, obviously. I automate automate my own retirement savings, our investing, like bill pay, everything, because I
Mhm.
have kids and I want to live my best life and I want to spend time with my kids and be able to, run around with them outside and not think, "Oh my god, did I pay the gas bill?" Or, "Oh my
Right.
god, did I remember to pay extra on the mortgage this month?" Like I don't ever want to have to deal with that. I just want to
Mhm.
have it go, and then, obviously I'm going to pay attention to it, but I'm not going to sit here like every day and input receipts, and no, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's an important message because if you are freaked out about getting your financial shit together because just the idea of a budget stresses you out, there are so
Mhm.
many ways to like make your money work in a way that
Yes.
suits you. So just go out there, explore. There are a ton of options. Dave Ramsey is not the only person dishing out budgeting advice. FYI.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that bucket approach that you mentioned before. Like I use the same thing. It makes my husband kind of
Mhm.
crazy. He's like, "Why do we have so many accounts? It's too much." But but he's not the one that's paying the bills and all of that stuff. So I'm like,
Right.
"Leave me alone. I got it. I got it." Just know that
Exactly.
this is the one you need to worry about.
Yes.
But I think it provides a lot of clarity. And I think, just knowing like this is for that and this is for that and this is for that is really helpful. Culturally, I think we're just used to having like one savings account, and like you're taught to
Mhm.
save, but like I just dump all the money in here. And this is like a catch-all. Like it's supposed to be my emergency fund, and maybe it's a down payment fund, or maybe I pull from there to buy a car or whatever. And I think that when your money is trying to do all of that at once, it
Yeah.
just doesn't work.
Absolutely. And nowadays, there are so many different bank accounts that you can get that you can actually segment the amount of money in there into different buckets. So, like, I
Yep.
use an Ally online savings, high yield savings account, and you
Mhm.
can create, I think, up to 10 categories. So, I have that
Mhm.
account and it is split out. Like, I got a little section for my dogs in case they have a veterinary emergency, or I got to buy gifts
Mhm.
for people for Christmas or my
Mhm.
vacation. And then, you don't have to track 10 different accounts at different 10 different banks. You can just have these
Mhm.
buckets. And
Yeah.
it's literally like the envelope system, except it's all
Mhm.
digital, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I think it's incredible. Yeah, I think Capital One 360 does something similar too.
Mhm.
It's really great.
Awesome. Okay, so along these lines of like getting your financial shit together, what advice would you give to somebody who wants to get control of their finances but just doesn't even know where to
Mhm.
start?
I'd say getting organized is probably the most important thing.
Hmm.
Knowing where your money is, how much money you have, what your assets are, just preparing like a net worth statement. So listing out all your assets, your checking account, your savings account, if you own a home, like all of those things, knowing what you owe and who you owe, as well, and just having clarity on that, I think can be a really powerful first step because I think a lot of people live with this like generalized money anxiety because they just feel out of control and like I don't know where things are, or I don't know how much I actually have or how much I owe, um, and it can just lead people to bury their heads in the sand and not pay attention to it.
Yeah. You cannot fight a problem you cannot see and understand, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah. So I am the host of the First-Gen Realness podcast. And, the idea is to serve as like a community space for first generation Americans to talk about like the real issues that are unique to us. And I think that really transcend cultures. Regardless of where your parents or your family comes from, I think a lot of those are unique. And I wanted to give a voice to that unique perspective.
Hmm.
So I do some solo shows, I do some, but mostly interviews, frankly, because
Hmm.
I think it's more interesting than just hearing me talk.
Hmm.
Um, and we just talk about people's career trajectories and their identity struggles and, all kinds of cool stuff.
That's amazing. I love that you've created that space. And I think it's so important to continue to have these discussions about like how our cultures and our backgrounds and our families like really shape us in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have this unique experience, especially as first gen, like we're balancing the expectations of our homes and the
Mm-hmm.
cultural expectations of where we come from, but then trying to assimilate into this American way, and
Yeah.
it's a lot. Like that shit is stressful.
It is. It is. And like I didn't used to realize how stressful it was until I got older. And then, when I got married and I saw my husband and his siblings struggling with this stuff too. And I was
Mhm.
just like, is everybody, I thought I was just kind of crazy. And I was the only one
No,
having
girl,
these
it
issues,
is
but I
not just
sta-
you.
yeah, and I when I started to realize, I was like, damn, we have to figure out something here. And my idea was to, I didn't really know how I wanted to do it, but the idea came to me last year, and I was like, this is it. Like, this is the way I'm going to contribute to that. Because I would have loved somebody to be around for me 20 years ago to tell me, like, yes, it's totally normal to feel like you're not really American and you're not really this, and, you're not being the ideal Puerto Rican, and you're not, just like kind of
Yes.
being in between all of this, like not getting who I remember I was probably in like 10th grade in high school, and we had like a spirit week celebration. All of my classmates were so excited about Billy Joel, and I was like, who is Billy Joel? I was like, what are you talking about? Because all I ever listened to growing up was like salsa and merengue. That was it.
Right.
And so I was like, I don't understand this. And I felt like such a weird human being that
Yeah.
I didn't understand some of these things, but it's just that's the first gen experience.
It absolutely is. And it just reminds me like of, side comments and things that I've gotten over the years cuz, God forbid you're like a good student and you're like
Mhm.
you talk white, quote unquote. Like I've always
Mhm.
felt not Latina enough for my Puerto Rican family cuz I'm just like
Mhm.
this, bougie ass successful, quote
Mhm.
unquote, like American, but then at the same
Mhm.
time, I don't feel like one of the girls in my super white employer, like,
No.
you know, and so there's
Yeah.
this thing, we're doing code switching just so that we
Mhm.
can fit into the environment that we're in. And we're always like
Mhm.
wearing this mask depending on who we're dealing with. And it's
Yes.
exhausting.
It is. Like it's mentally exhausting and you always are left with this feeling of like I'm not enough or I'm not doing enough. And that was
Yes.
something I used to beat myself up over. And for me, because I'm mixed too, it was really like I was like I
Mm,
can't be anything to anybody. I can't be
yeah.
everything to any, like I'm always gonna be the odd woman out.
Yeah.
And it's really a struggle, and I feel like we spend so much time trying to follow like this mixed messaging, and
Yeah.
it's hard.
Yeah. I love the concept of the podcast. Everybody, please go and subscribe because that sounds like a conversation that many of us are having. And it's great that you're providing a space to continue that conversation and broadcast it out. So you know
Thank
you're not
you.
alone.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm curious, do you have a money mantra and what is it?
Oh, you're asking me questions that are tough. I do a lot of affirmations. I do a
Okay.
lot of affirmations, but I do, I try to make a choice every day to live a full, abundant life, right? And
Mm,
whatever that means for me. And that changes, and it changes day to day sometimes, it changes month to month. But that
yeah.
is my focus and what I try to use as like the guiding force for my life.
Hmm. And so when you say an abundant life, I know you're not
Hmm.
just talking about money. So, like, what does that
No.
mean in totality?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to live a life that, like, when I'm an old lady sitting in a chair and can barely walk, like, I want to be able to say, like, I did that. I lived a
Hmm.
great life, and like, even though I can barely walk now, like, I did everything I ever wanted to, you know?
Yeah.
Abundant in experiences, in beautiful relationships, like meaningful relationships. And I've been blessed with like an incredible family. So I already have that and I have had it since day one.
Hmm.
But continuing to nurture those and find new ones. And experiences and also money too. Like I want, because money is the tool for that.
Yeah.
For achieving a lot of the things that I want to achieve in my life.
I love that. All right, Anna. So, if we want to find out more about you and follow your journey, where can we find you?
Yeah, so I mostly hang out for social media purposes. I mostly hang out on Instagram and Twitter, and my handle's the same. It's at ANJIEKONTE. And I also have a blog, so you can follow me along there. It's daretodreamplanning.com/blog.
Awesome. This has been an amazing conversation. I feel like people are going to freak out about the fact that you are a CFP because I know personally I have been approached by several people and are like, "Can
Hmm.
you recommend a Latina CFP to me?" And I'm like, "No, I cannot because I don't know them."
There are none. That's because
But
there are
now
none.
we know. So if you have been in the market for a certified financial planner who actually understands your cultural background, who's not some old ass white dude who has no concept of like what it means to be Latina, to be first gen, to be a
Hmm.
millennial, to have these additional burdens that we spoke about on this podcast, like whether it's, you got a plan for securing your parents' financial future because they don't have a
Hmm.
retirement, whether you're trying to help your niece with college because her mom can't do it. Like,
Yeah.
we got a lot of shit to plan for, and it probably
Yes.
makes sense for you to talk to somebody who can actually understand those burdens. So, Anna is your girl. Okay.
Yes, I am. Holla at your girl.
This has been an amazing conversation. I'm so happy we were connected. And
Me
I
too.
you're doing an event with Ally coming up, correct?
I am, yeah. So Ally
Tell us about
is
it.
so their host Ally Invest is hosting a investment conference, and I'm going to be interviewed by their chief investment officer, and she and I are going to talk about like the unique challenges that women of color face in investing. So
I
that's
love
going to
that this is even something that people care about talking about
Oh
right
my
now.
God.
That's
I
amazing.
know. I know. I'm so like I'm not even kidding. I'm so excited. Like I looked like one of those when I got the email asking me to be a part of this, I looked like one of those inflatable dolls in the car sales lot. I was like waving my arms like a crazy person. I was like, "Yes, they get it. They get it."
That's
So
awesome.
I'm so excited about it, and I think it's going to be really, really cool. And also like the conference itself just gives general information. It's free, general investment information. So from basics to like really complex option strategies and stuff like that. So I think it's definitely a good thing for people to check out.
Awesome. Anna, thank you so, so much. This was awesome.
Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure.
Absolutely. I hope you loved this episode with Anna, and I hope that we have inspired you to take control of your money and stop letting it create stress for you. We have to take the time to educate ourselves on organizing our finances, choosing systems that we can implement to assist us with achieving our goals, and giving ourselves a break for not being perfect at our finances. At the end of the day, I didn't learn this stuff. I'm sure you didn't either. So let's forgive ourselves. Let us practice grace with ourselves, and let's just keep trying. Because the more that you practice managing your money and controlling it versus letting it control you, the better you will get. If you're interested in watching the webinar that Anna did about investing for women of color, you can head over to Ally's YouTube channel and search for Combating the Wealth Gap Head On. That's the name of the webinar, and they have actually a ton of different awesome videos all about investing on the Ally YouTube channel. So make sure you check that out. If you're loving this podcast and you're ready to take your dinero to the next level, make sure you check out the YQD community. This community is a Patreon membership community that gets you exclusive access to the Yo Quiero Dinero Slack group. You get access to Janice and other subscribers to help you accomplish your money goals. Plus, get free exclusive access to all YQD live events and monthly meetups with Janice and other guests from the podcast. You get a free t-shirt, 50% off private one-on-one coaching, and more. To find out more, head over to yoquierodineropodcast.com and check out our Patreon community subscription options. You can also head over to patreon.com/yoquierodineropodcast for more information, or go to our Instagram and click on the link in our bio. As a reminder, if you're loving the Yo Quiero Dinero podcast, please make sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share. That way, amazing listeners like you can find us too. We want everybody out here being poderosa with their money. And so if they know about us, they can start doing that too. If you don't already follow us on social media, make sure that you follow the Yo Quiero Dinero podcast on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, and even TikTok. Yep, we're doing TikToks too. And don't forget to visit the Yo Quiero Dinero podcast blog, where you can find episode show notes, as well as personal finance articles, news about events, and more. Until next time, guys, stay inspired, stay confident, and stay poderosa. On the Yo Quiero Dinero podcast and associated entities, all information provided is for general information purposes only and does not constitute accounting, legal, tax, or other professional advice. Listeners should not act upon the content or information found here without first seeking appropriate advice from an accountant, financial planner, lawyer, or other professional. We assume no responsibility for information contained on this podcast and associated entities and disclaim all liability with respect to such information, including but not limited to any liability for errors, inaccuracies, omissions, or misleading or defamatory statements. Usage of this podcast and associated content constitutes an explicit understanding and acceptance of the terms of this disclaimer.